Hello, welcome to Three Count Commentaries. So today we're going to be doing an old school prediction show. Instead of tacking it on to the end of SmackDown, I'm just going to give it a standalone prediction show for the Royal Rumble 2023. But that won't be the only thing we're doing. I wrote an itinerary. I put it in the description. I always put an itinerary in the description, even though, to be quite honest, I almost always forget to tell you that it's in the description. I end up just going through it all over again. Anyway, good night, everybody. How the hell is everybody doing? I'm glad everybody's here, or whoever is here, which seems to be nobody so far. Um, anyway, what's been up? How have you guys been? Whoever is here, which seems to be nobody so far. So anyway, I guess we can get started. I guess I would say everybody. Let's give people a minute to come in, but look, I work Fridays now, so I'm trying to wrap this up before 10 o'clock. But we got a lot to do. We got a lot to do, Seymour. Uh, so we're gonna hurry up and get through this. Even though we will be taking our time, we're not going to rush through anything because my job is not, super intense now. So we can take our time. So we're gonna go through each one of these little nuggets that I put in the description. Our topics: one, Dax Harwood on young wrestlers seeking advice in AEW. Two, AEW's deal with DAZN. Three, Frankie Kazarian on leaving AEW. And four, we'll be talking about Royal Rumble 2023. I'll give my predictions and thoughts of to what's going to occur. All right. So what's up, Top Dog? The only one who actually made a comment so far. I'm so glad to see people are starting to pile in. Um, we're gonna talk about Sami Zayn and whether he should win the Royal Rumble or not. We're gonna discuss that. But first, let us go into Dax Harwood. All right. So Dax Harwood is going to be. I'm going to play the audio, as a matter of fact, because it's so interesting the response that he gave. This is about 6 minutes, but I want people to really get a genuine idea of what he's thinking here. So I want people to listen because we've been talking about it because almost every couple of days, maybe, you see another legend come out of nowhere saying, "Well, I work backstage in AEW. None of the young boys ever asked me anything. They never ask for any advice. They don't listen." Billy Gunn, Tully, Jake Roberts, so many of them. So Dak Harwood is going to approach this subject.
Some disputed, some not, and some just rumors. That you've got all these guys in AEW with this wealth of knowledge in the back. You got Arn Anderson was around, Tully Blanchard was around, William Regal's around, Jim Ross, a lot of older people, and that the younger wrestlers aren't taking advantage of that. They're not listening. You told me a story a long time ago about Ricky Morton visiting developmental, where people didn't listen, or they weren't showing him. They weren't like walking over, going, "God dang, Ricky Morton, tell me how to get people to cheer for me because that's what you're kind of the best at ever."
And I broke down and cried. Yep.
Is that a problem?
He said people not asking Kerry Morton for advice made him cry. I want you to put a thumbtack in that for future reference.
In AEW, where the young wrestlers are already TV stars, so they feel maybe they don't need to improve their craft by going to a William Regal or going to a Tully Blanchard. Like, how could you be a heel and not go up to Tully Blanchard and ask for advice, right?
He's the greatest working heel of all time. There's no one. I mean, him, in my opinion, him and Fit Finlay are the two greatest working heels in wrestling in the last 40 years. But I don't want to say it's a problem because I don't really, honestly, I don't think that the guys think, "Oh, I'm a big TV star. I don't need to get, I don't need to get any kind of affirmation from them." I think what it is the culture now, not just in AEW, in the world. And I think people don't like to be told you're wrong.
All right, so you hear this, right? You hear him actually admitting that the problem exists, while at the same time saying, "Well, it's not just AEW. Like it's there, but it's not just AEW, you know. So just so we're clear, he's not saying it didn't. It's not the case. He's trying to add caveats to it.
I don't think people like when other people are slightly abrasive to them and how they explain things. And so if someone went up to Tully Blanchard and say, "Hey, did you watch my match? Yeah. What'd you think?" "Well, I thought the match sucked." Tully would say that, you know. Tully wouldn't sugarcoat anything. And so I think they're afraid of that. And, you know, listen, I've been there where I've been intimidated to go up to Tully Blanchard, to go up to an Arn Anderson, who you know, and he is an incredible human being, and he'll talk to anybody in a second. But I was Jake the Snake Roberts, same thing. I was intimidated because these are the guys that I looked up to.
Sure.
So I was afraid of going up to them and saying the wrong thing.
Right.
So I don't know if I don't know what goes through their head. If they do think yeah, I've already made it, then they're fucking wrong and they're fucking stupid. But if they're saying, "Oh man, I'm kind of where I don't want to bother him," or I'm afraid of him. I'm afraid of what he'll say. I get that. I understand that. But there's got to come a time where you come out of that shell, because if you don't, you're never going to get better. Because like I said on a teaser, our generation didn't have the benefit of working with a certain group of guys. You know, there were just a few, and that was like Sean and Taker and Hunter, that lasted for a little while, but none of our generation got to work with them.
Right.
And so the only way we can learn is by asking. You know, there are no more road trips, really, especially with guys like, you know, you hear the great stories about riding with Harley Race, or, riding down the Mid-Atlantic roads with Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton and Jim Cornette in the back, and listening to Dennis Condrey explain psychology. Like, those days are gone. So you have to come out of your shell, and you have to ask these people who have done something in this business how, why, what they need to do, you know?
All right, so I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna let it sit right there. I mean, there's still some more to it, but he's just gonna keep saying pretty much the same thing. I understand the idea of I don't want to bother him. You know, I've been through that too. Where there's people. I'm not a very aggressive guy. At least I don't think so. If somebody is walking past or something like that, I tend to yield. I tend to move aside. I tend to let other people take the front sometimes. I don't want to step on any toes. I don't want to elbow anybody out of the way. I don't want to bulldoze anybody. But what is he there for if I can't ask him for advice? I just don't get it. And it's like sometimes the people who are saying they don't listen in AEW are the people who are being paid to be coaches. So what Dax Harwood is saying, I understand if it's just a guy who he's not a paid coach. Maybe it's Jake the Snake Roberts. He's just hanging around. He works there, but it's not his job to critique your match. He might, you might get some attitude out of Jake Roberts. You might get some "fuck out of here, kid" or whatever out of Jake Roberts. It might happen. It's entirely possible. But Billy Gunn, he's being paid to be there. He's being paid to be the coach. How are you? I don't know, and I don't get it. Look, Tully Blanchard was not being paid to, go down to whatever their equivalent of the Performance Center, I guess we call it the Nightmare Factory, and to try to figure out what Jim and Jam is going to do in a tag team match. That's not his job right now. Doesn't mean that he still is not interested, because he's there, he's watching. Assuredly he wants to do more than just line his pockets with cash. He's actually looking to make some kind of impact on the youth here. He's actually looking to help people move forward, looking to help the business that he bled for to move forward. At least you would hope so. So yeah, I would imagine you could be able to walk up to him and ask him for advice. None of these people have said that they're not willing to help. Not one of them. In fact, all of them, Jim Ross, Billy Gunn, Tully, Jake, every single one of them have said they were offering advice. They would have to initiate and tell them, kid, I'm trying to help you here. And ultimately, what will end up happening is the young wrestler would get an attitude and basically say, I don't take advice, which we came with the Hangman Page thing, right? Hangman Page came out of nowhere. I don't take advice. Like, dude, you're like barely 30. And there's people on the roster who there's people backstage who have been doing this as long as you've been alive. How are you too good to take advice? And you've never made it anywhere. Like, that's the weird thing. You never made it anywhere. It'd be one thing if you were like, I don't know, The Rock or something like that, and Tully's like, listen, kid. And you're like, I'm the fucking Rock. What are you talking about? I know what I'm doing. But you're some NXT level talent who've been wrestling in Ring of Honor for 10 years or whatever the hell. You should take advice. You don't know how to work on TV. You never had to work in a big building. But this attitude that it's got us this far doing our own thing. So why should we listen to the past? Why should we listen to them? They didn't help us get here, you know. And it's also, I guess, it comes from the Young Bucks. That philosophy, because the Young Bucks they mock the whole killing the business stuff, right? They mock it. They've been mocking it for 15 years or whatever. We got where we got while everyone claims we're killing the business or we're ruining the business or whatever the hell. So we don't listen. We're gonna do our own thing, and it works for us. And then other people just do their own thing, and they just end up looking like clones of the Young Bucks. I don't know how long I talked about Action Andretti, and I just basically said, like, you can see in his movements that he just does whatever the Young Bucks do. Buddy Matthews, Top Flight, Private Party. A lot of them are just, hey, the Young Bucks do all the flippity doodads. We gonna do them too. Who cares if it doesn't make sense? It's AEW. This is the promotion where the producers and the agents and all these people don't have any authority. They have no power. Nobody listens to them. We do whatever we want here. And what happens is there's this mixture of people who are really good tend to continue standing out. But the people who are mid, they don't get any better. Like somebody like MJF. MJF is good, but he's been consistently good. He got better working with CM Punk because CM Punk is better than him, right? But then you have people who have been in this company for 3 years straight, have gotten no better. Wardlow, Hobbs, it's just so many of those guys. They're younger dudes, even though I know Wardlow was like in his 30s. I didn't even know that until recently. But these guys, they're not getting any better. Sammy Guevara is a number one. Sammy Guevara was Cody's last project. Cody left AEW trying to put over Sammy Guevara. And Sammy Guevara is in the exact same position now than before he wrestled Cody. He is going back to being Chris Jericho's roadie. Why is that? Why is it that Cody spent, 3 or 4 months working on Sammy Guevara, and Sammy Guevara has had zero growth? Not just in his booking, but in his performance and his character. His promos have not improved. His matches have not improved. Nothing's improved. It's the exact same as when he had the Panda Bear on his head. So you got guys who have got 3 years, 4 years, and have zero growth. None. Now, it's great to get people out of their shell and to let people see you for the first time. A guy like Eddie Kingston, for instance. It's great for people to be able to see him for the first time because you don't really know his stuff. And because Kingston is, a little bit different, he has layers to his character. He can do some stuff. AEW is perfect for a guy like him. That's why I say I like a guy like a Timothy Thatcher. It's good. But for a young talent, oh my God. Even if you have good verbal skills, the opportunity for you to apply those verbal skills are minimal. Look how long it took to get Ricky Starks a microphone on a regular basis. It took 2.5 years or something. He wasn't there from the very beginning. He came in almost a year later. So you're talking about 2 years of a guy who was ready, who was cutting badass promos 2 years ago. It took them 2 years for him to find the microphone again. You know? And then since then, he still doesn't really talk anymore. It's been 2 or 3 weeks since his last really good promo because they focus so much on in-ring work. You've got Jungle Boy, who, I guess he's a little bit more comfortable in his skin now, but he's not any better than he was 3 years ago. And it's unfortunate, like, especially when you look at some of the NXT talent, and some of them are growing by leaps and bounds, like, Tiffany Stratton, or somebody's coming right out of the gate like a Brian Breaker, and they're getting so much better, but this is awful. Hook. Hook is good. I'll give Hook some credit. They waited to debut Hook though. They let Hook linger around for like a year before they finally did something to him. But Hook is about the same, to be quite honest. It hasn't been a year yet for Hook. I don't think he's been around for a full year yet. But yes, not everybody's going to get better. I do think that not everybody is going to improve in leaps and bounds or whatever. But you have to try. And I think that in AEW, they just don't want to try. And that's always been the problem with a lot of wrestling promotions, that they let guys get complacent. And it was a big problem with TNA too, where TNA was just kind of like, we're X Division guys, we show up, we wrestle, and we go to the back. That's it. We do all of our flips and our kicks, and we fall off stuff, and then we go to the back. And then Kevin Nash comes in there and says, let's do Paparazzi Productions. Let's go do some character stuff. And people are like, Kevin Nash is ruining the X Division by trying to force these guys to have personalities. It's like, no. No, he's trying to help them. Maybe his ideas aren't the best, but who's got better ideas? Nobody. Everybody's idea is just to throw Alex Shelley out there and for him to have the same 15-minute match he had 2 weeks ago. It's like, no, he's trying to do something different, trying to dig into the kid, try to find his personality and bring it to the forefront, because he knows his career will actually be longer with a personality than it would be if he just starts falling off stuff. I mean, and TNA had the same thing. You had Raven backstage. And Raven did plenty of interviews with him talking about guys like, Elix Skipper and, those guys who were doing crazy jumps off the cage. And Raven would try to tell them where to put it and all that kind of stuff, but they weren't listening because they're young guys and they're going to do what they want. And look at what happened with TNA. It took for somebody to come in and take complete control of the company, essentially, to get stuff to actually start changing. And then when they did that, they changed it too much and ended up ruining it. But that was TNA's fault. They didn't develop their young guys. Even when they had AJ Styles, he was still AJ Styles, and he just threw a belt on him. He was the same guy, babyface or heel, essentially. But then when other people came around, they started jerking him in two different directions and all this kind of stuff. He was little Ric Flair, then he was little Christian. I think he might have been little Christian first. And that stuff really demeaned AJ Styles. Don't let it get that far. Just help him develop who he is. Not, hey, go mimic this guy, which is all we're doing right now. It's just, hey, go mimic this guy. Hey, Sammy Guevara, just do whatever Chris Jericho's doing. Okay, that's easy. But that's not Sammy Guevara. Who the hell is Sammy Guevara? We don't know. He's just permanently in Chris Jericho's shadow. It's sad. It's truly sad. TN Pyro said, no top flight on Dynamite, by the way, after beating the Bucks. Look, you're assuming that them beating the Bucks matter, and it doesn't. AJ3 says, nobody do resources anymore. Don't they ever record footage? Is in old wrestling matches from back in the 80s and 90s on how to do spots and work the crowd and stuff. You would think so. Now, I know they do really push people upon that. in the PC, because there have been guys who would. I think I saw Chad Gable. You know, he had a stack of tapes, like literal tapes, that he got from the archives or whatever, because he said that you could put in a request. I think Johnny Gargano said the same thing. You could put in a request for certain footage, and there's a gopher who will go back there and make you these tapes that you can look at and review. You would think that guys who have YouTube would do that, but then again, what do you think what do you think they're watching? That would be my question. If you are, well, Action Andretti is what, 24, 25 years old. Sammy Guevara is what, 26, 27. What do you think they're watching? You think they're going back and watching, Roddy Piper and, Greg the Hammer Valentine? No, they're not watching them. No, they're watching the Luchadors and and not on Nitro, and they're watching old TNA, because that TNA stuff is 20 years old now. TNA is over 20 years old, which means there's probably some people that's on that roster who probably grew up super fans of AJ Styles, and see him as a godfather kind of figure, which means that the X division of TNA has, seeped into the brain of some of these guys. This is the stuff that they were watching way back then. The idea, and we was talking about this in the Discord, about whether the older guys like Bruno and Billy Graham should get more credit, because the pre-WrestleMania guys. And I said absolutely, the pre-WrestleMania guys should definitely get a lot more credit. But there's no wrestling buddies of Bruno Sammartino. There's no action figures of he never made it into a video game. It's a culture clash where if you didn't make WrestleMania, at least WrestleMania 10, the older the business gets, the more detached the young wrestlers become. I don't expect too many young wrestlers to even have an idea of who Mr. Perfect was, or Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. I don't think they have any idea who these people are. Like I said, after I heard Chris Bay say he never watched a Bret Hart match, I lost faith in this youth. I really did. I know there's, he's just one person, but to be so, I don't know, cocky about it. You're like, these guys don't study tapes. These guys don't watch anything. But then you think about it, like they probably do watch stuff. They just don't watch anything from the early 90s or the late 80s or anything like that. They probably watched stuff from 99, 2004, because that's when they were a kid. And that's just a different way of viewing things, I guess. Greetings and salutations, Ninja. D-Mac says, feels like the younger gen in various fields, sports, music, etc., aren't students of the game. Well, that's pretty obvious. We talked about this before when it comes to rappers and stuff. Like a lot of the younger rappers are just ignorant. They ignorant as hell, man. They don't know anything about older. Like, you can stop some of these younger dudes, man, and ask them about Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap. They'd be like, who is that? Have no idea who these people are. While just, and it actually started before them, because there was a generation before the 21 Savages and the Kodak Blacks who didn't know anything about Cool G Rap. For them, Raekwon was an old school artist. I was just, it's crazy because I was listening to Sitting Sideways, the Paul Wall song. And I looked, and that song came out in what, 2004? That's almost 20 years ago. Like, when you think about it, Mike Jones is old school now. And I remember, like, I was on Twitter when the Young Bloods, somebody posted that video. And I was like, man, I remember this era. I was a young boy during that era. What happened? And I just say that every time. Like, I look at, like, for me, I thought we were frozen in time a little bit, because but when you see people wearing the oversized jerseys and the sports gear and stuff like that, you're like, yo, young dudes don't look like that anymore. They all look weird. They got dreadlocks with, weird colors in their hair, and they got face tattoos, and everything's about popping pills and doing drugs and everything. It's like, whatever happened to the guys that, with the slightly grimy dudes with the mall chains and fresh white kicks and that kind of stuff. You think like those guys are 20 years old now. They're 20 years older than they were then. So if you was 22 in 2004, you're 42 now. Like you're 40. You're somebody's daddy now. It's a completely different ball game, and that's a culture shock too. Because I don't really hear anybody talk that much about it. Like that era of hip hop or that era of rap, it's not really discussed a lot. And now you realize that there's a certain eras of wrestling that's just not going to be discussed. And we're not talking about any of that shit Cornette and Brian Last talk about, the 1960s Oklahoma territory, the Dust Bowl territory, whatever the hell they want to call it, whatever. But we're talking 18,000 people at WrestleMania 18 or whatever the hell the attendance was. And people are kind of like, yeah, never seen it before. We're going to get to that point eventually where guys are going to be like, Triple H, oh yeah, you mean the old guy who books NXT? It's not going to be, Reign of Terror. I remember, where were you during Triple H's Reign of Terror? It's going to be, oh yeah, I remember when Triple H was on NXT saying we are the revolution and all that kind of stuff. Like that's just kind of how the game goes, man. AJ3 says, what advice is Chris Jericho giving to Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia? And who the hell knows? Who knows? And it's hard to even say if he would even be giving them advice. Advice about what? Just he's trying to help them, but he also is trying to not embarrass and humiliate himself. But every week they just do what Jericho do. The entire Jericho Appreciation Society, the entire concept is about Chris Jericho, because he's never had to worry about getting other people over before. That's always been Vince's job. It's always been Vince's job to make sure that the guys Jericho is working with look good. Now Tony Khan is basically like, Jericho knows what he's doing, and then just leaves Jericho to do it, and Jericho's doing the best that he can, at least what he knows how to do. But he's never had to do this shit before. He's never had to build anybody from scratch before. The fuck he knows about doing that? And nobody even asked him. And what is he going to do? He's being paid so much money, he's going to turn around and say, I don't know what I'm doing? No, I have no idea what I'm doing. No, of course he's going to be like, I'm an expert. I'm Chris Jericho. I know what I'm doing. No. It was always somebody in the office, some writer or somebody like that was going to catch a guy who was falling or let somebody fall. Now in AEW, they're trying to see, just stick them with Jericho. Just stick them with this guy. Just stick them with that guy. And stick Jungle Boy with Christian. And hopefully some of Christian's charisma and personality will rub off on him. And then it doesn't. And now you're like, oh, well, we tried. It's like, no, you didn't. What about Christian reminds you of Jungle Boy or vice versa? You need to find somebody who can help him be him. Christian out there stomping on him every week on the mic is not helping him really. AJ3 says, and they're all WWE fans. None of them watch WCW like Kevin Owens, for instance. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I think that there are a lot more WCW fans in this generation than we would give people credit for. So I think there was more ECW fans before, but I think there's more WCW fans now. And there's more TNA fans now and more Ring of Honor fans. WG Phil says, I'm only 4 years younger than Bay, and I watched Bret Hart matches. Yeah. You probably actually like wrestling. But Chris Bay, he's in a worse position than Sammy Guevara. At least Sammy Guevara is in AEW. Chris Bay is in a lower mid-card in Impact. And he's like, I've never seen many Bret Hart matches. I'm like, what? Stay right where you are. Stay where you are until you figure it out. He said, when we get older, we're gonna talk about how nobody respects 21 Savage. Yeah, y'all gonna be a sad case. Boy, y'all gonna be sad. I've heard dudes talk like that about, dudes like Jeezy and stuff. I'm like, I was an adult when Jeezy came out. I wasn't that old. I remember when the craze hit. That's like I remember when the craze of 50 Cent hit. I remember, everybody going crazy about it. I wasn't that big of a fan, but I remember it. Then you sit back and be like, wow, that was 20 years ago. Well, it wasn't 20 years ago for Jeezy, and it might have been like 18 years ago. 'Cause I think it might have been in. Wait, has Jeezy been out for 20? No, it was like 2006. No, that was his second album, came out in 06. I think this first album came out in 04, so maybe next year it'd be 20 years. Um, but yeah, ringtone rappers, little flips and stuff. Those guys are dead in the water. D Max is 40. He feel like an old dude too. Yeah, I'm telling you, I only feel old when I listen to music that I thought was like the shit when I was, and I remember how young I was. Like I was listening to 400 Degrees, the Juvenile 400 Degrees. I remember going to the gas station and getting the tape, the 400 Degrees. And then when you tell somebody that, you basically give your age away. Like man, I love 400 Degrees when it first came out. I had the cassette tape. You remember cassette tapes? They're older than CDs. The CDs are older than the MP3 players. And MP3 players are older than Zooms and iPods and everything that exists now. You're like shit. I didn't even have a Discman when I was a kid. A dead giveaway. Where were you when the what version of Lil Wayne do you remember? The Block is Hot or the Carter? That should tell you how old you are. Like I remember before the Block is Hot came out. So I'm old. D-Max said, as a kid, it felt like we were open to learning about the past. I was big into basketball history and football history. Yeah, I think we were a little bit more open minded. We weren't inundated with so much information though. We're in the same age bracket. You're probably a little bit older than me, but now these kids have so much information at their fingertips that they're just absolutely ignorant. Um, and it's not a surprise that they're ignorant of things that they should know about. You know, they are so super into music or movies or whatever, and yet they have no intricate knowledge of anything past the first 5 or 6 years. They don't know anything about music history. They never study like even the magazines like the Source or Double XL or anything like. They don't know anything about that kind of stuff. Um, they don't know anything about. They don't know what it's like to. I used to go into bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, or something like that, just guessing and being like, "Huh, I wonder if I go in this bookstore today, will there be a new Source or Double XL magazine?" We used to go to the flea market around DeQuinder and 6 Mile. We used to just be like, if we go up there today, will there be a new Smack DVD or not? We can't call anybody because it's all like bootleg Africans. We can't call them on the phone and be like, yo, you got the new Smack DVD joint? So we just got to make the trip. So it's kind of like I'll call my homeboy and be like, yo, we going up there or not? Like we going up there and we go up there and they don't have it or they don't have anything and they can't tell us what kind of schedule this shit is on. It's hood shit and they're bootlegging it. So they don't know. They just know if they got the DVDs or they don't. So we had to go up there pretty much every week. Hey, crack open the CDs or whatever and go past all the bootleg Dipset mixtapes. See what the new Smack DVD is. Have I heard of this guy before? Do I got this one at home yet? Whatever the case may be. But it was just like it was trial and error, and that's how you learned. Everything is at your fingertips now, so you kind of take it for granted. Like when it comes to the whole Smack DVD thing, we used to watch those whole DVDs. We didn't just watch the battles; we watched the whole disc. Nowadays there is no whole disc; it's just the battle, and now the battle's on caffeine and dudes are doing skits and shit. I'm not even watching that shit no more. But it was it was an interesting time. And you realize now that they've been doing professional hood shit when it comes to the rap battles for so long that there's not a lot of people who remember the whole Smack DVD era. You know, those people are older. A lot of them are really old. Before Smack started using contracts, guys started complaining about wanting to get out of their contracts. Uh, Black is signed until February 2027. Holy shit. Don't tell me nothing like that. DMAC and listening to old music from my older relatives, and the samples kept that old music alive to a newer generation. That is actually true too. A lot of old music was kept alive by sampling. You know, it was that was kind of ingenious too how they did it, right? Um, and it taught a lot of young people about music, and that was very impressive. You know, but we don't have. I mean, we still have samples today, but not nearly what they used to be. Not nearly. Chingy was a flip phone rapper. Yeah, and he was one of the worst ever. WG Phil says, my first Brett matches was his Mania 8 and 9 matches from the Piper's DVD and the history of WrestleMania 1 through 9 DVD. Yeah. I remember when Bret Hart was in a tag team. So I do remember those matches for sure. It's weird to say that stuff, but you know, I watched Bret. I mean, you always feel more attached to people when you watch their journey. Like Bret was always one of my guys, even though I was more of a Shawn Michaels fan. Bret was always one of my guys because I remember the Hart Foundation as a tag team. I remember when he was, you know, coming up through the ranks. I watched the legend of Bret Hart grow. I watched the legend of Shawn Michaels grow. I watched the legend of Steve Austin grow. Even though I didn't watch a lot of WCW, I remember stunning Steve Austin. You know, I watched the legend of The Rock and The Undertaker. I watched those legends grow. Watched the legend of John Cena grow. You know, I wasn't there for the very beginning of Hulk Hogan because I was a baby, like literally a baby. So Hulkamania was already running wild by the time I even started paying attention. But being the guy who sees it from the ground floor up, you have a greater appreciation for it. And people underestimate how passionate you can be about something when you're on the ground floor of it. Now wrestling tries to push guys too fast. You know, they try to need to be champion in 2 years or something like that, and let you know a steady progression of a guy being on the roster 5 or 6 years in a tag team, humping it. You know, like Danielson. Danielson was one of those guys. I think he probably won the belt still too fast, but you know, the guy who went through everything. CM Punk was another one. He went through everything. You know, and people have more of an affinity for those kinds of guys. D-Mac, I remember making bootlegs, but before that, making tapes off the radio. Yeah, I was making tapes off the radio until he made a mixtape. That's back when I used to listen to the radio. I stopped listening to the radio in like 2000, though. Like, that's wild to say. Like, when No Limit was dominating the radio, I stopped listening to the radio. My man said he grew up with Wayne all the way through. My man said, Mia K, I am now old. I have cassette tapes and records. I never seen a record in person. You know, my parents didn't have records. My mom would listen to the radio. She didn't have CDs until I started buying her some. She had tapes though. She did have tapes, but my parents didn't really have like tapes or CDs or anything like old records and stuff like that. Some people's parents have. My parents didn't have none of that stuff. The reason why guys like Bruno don't get no respect is because a lot of it was their matches were televised locally on MSG Network, which was I think on HBO for a long time, and then it just became MSG Network. So a lot of the big matches were either house shows or MSG shows, and there was no way to see that stuff. So you would think it would have became some kind of revival with the network, and now a lot of that Madison Square Garden stuff is visible, but a lot of them don't watch it. It's not the wrestling that they grew up with. It's it's good stuff, but it's more along the realm of the wrestling of its time. Like Bruno and Stan Hansen in a cage match is far more closely resembles the NWA than Hogan and King Kong Bundy in a cage. You know, like Hogan and King Kong Bundy in the cage at WrestleMania 2. That looks like nothing you would see in NWA or anything anywhere else. It's a completely different ball game. And the fan base, some of whom have been conditioned that the pre-WrestleMania stuff was not really all that important. But you go back and watch some of those MSG crowds, man, they were so electric. Jesus Christ. Even stuff that was in the WrestleMania era, but didn't happen at WrestleMania, like Hogan and Paul Orndorff at the big event. You can go watch that stuff and it's still very good. You know, but it's like pulling teeth getting these kids to watch some older stuff. They just refuse to watch it. X100 thinks music is in the worst state it's ever been. Mainly because it's not about music anymore. You know, the music business has changed quite a bit. D-Max said the library used to carry vibe and the source at all times. I never stepped inside of a library. I was an adult by the time I stepped inside of a library. I never stepped into a library as a kid. I couldn't find one. You know, I didn't have no libraries in there. So I would always, like, if I was skipping school or something like that, I would look and see, go to a newsstand, and you look at the girly magazines back when they existed, and then you would try to find like one of those rap magazines, or you could try to get like one of those in the middle joints, like Vibe or something like that. That's not really dedicated to hip hop or whatever, but it's close enough. So yeah, I like those DVDs that was coming out of New York, man. New York was doing something big with the DVDs and the mixtapes and stuff like that, man. We was on top of that. It's just, it kind of got confusing when so many people started doing it, though. And after a while, it became easier to tell, what was legit and what wasn't. Top Dog says, I think in all forms nowadays, including wrestling fans not knowing their history. Yeah, they don't need to. When you realize that you don't need to know your history to understand it or to appreciate it, then it's kind of how it is. All you need to know about the music business, remember that book. I still have that book. It's called The Big Payback, The History of the Business of Hip Hop. I still haven't read it yet. This guy's book, Dan Charnas, he's about to drop a book on Jay Dilla, and I'm going to pre-order it tomorrow morning. And the book is going to come out on the 31st. I'm still swamped with comics and shit like that, but I'm going to buy it anyway and put it on my shelf somewhere. I'm going to get around to it eventually. Jay Dilla is very interesting to me, so I'm interested in that. Better not be the Bronx. So. Yeah, the Isleys, they caught a whole generation. Like, there are so many people who found out about them through sampling. Same thing with like the OJs, or Funkadelic. Like Dr. Dre, give him some credit. He really made like funk music. He brought it back, because the West Coast was so funk heavy, it woke everybody up, Top Dog says most fans nowadays on both sides, the earliest history of wrestling is the New Generation era, the Attitude Era. It was probably Hogan era, and the earliest they don't even know about pre-WrestleMania wrestling. Yeah, and also it doesn't help that a lot of the pre-WrestleMania, pre-Vince McMahon wrestling was very dry. Like, it was very sports presented with little flash. It was a lot of squash matches. The big matches happened on house shows. The angles were rarely shot. There wasn't a lot of angles. So if you try to sit down and watch, I don't know, some championship wrestling from such and such show, WWF championship wrestling, whatever, gonna be a ton of squash matches. There's gonna be a lot of promos, but not a lot's gonna happen. You have to actually be energized. That's why I think programs like World Class Championship Wrestling and Mid South stand out as territories is because it always felt like something was happening, even when nothing was happening, even when there was squash matches. It still felt like something good was happening. It wasn't a dry, gristle of a product. Meanwhile, other places were doing basically the bare minimum to to get people to watch their television, and it doesn't play well today. D-Mac's parents had records. He remembers being a kid and only because his record player. Yeah, Isaac Hayes was another one. Like I still don't know anybody who listens to Isaac Hayes records. All I know is everybody knows Isaac Hayes samples. Does your car still have a CD player? I still have CDs, but no, I do not have a CD player. I just collect. I used to collect CDs. I'm a collector. I like to collect things. So for a while, I was like, all right, I'm gonna download the album, but I'm gonna buy the CD if I like it. And then I fell off. I think Gutter Rainbows by Talib Kweli. I remember when that album came out. I was like, wow, this is dope. I'm gonna buy it when I go to FYE or whatever. And then I went into FYE and the album was like $21. And I was like, whew. I owe Talib Kweli $21. And now I'm not really a big fan of Talib Kweli, so I'm like, fuck him, man. He not getting shit. I used to always joke and say, if I see Talib Kweli in person, I'm gonna give him $21 or whatever for stealing Gutter Rainbows. But now I'm like, he owe me money for the bullshit that he's been producing. Anyway, I did my research, and you were absolutely right about Bruno hating the Attitude Era and Vince McMahon. Yeah, and he was on. I think it was Donahue. He was one of the guys that was on there going after Vince. It was years and years, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't really know Bruno is because he was gone during the years where it was at its hottest. Like, the crazy thing is Bob Backlund drew very little and was very dry as a personality, but Bob Backlund showed up. Bob Backlund was there in the New Generation era. He reinvented himself. Bob Backlund even popped up occasionally in the Attitude Era. Because he kept appearing, people was like, "Oh, Bob Backlund, I know who he is." And it's like, well, Bruno is a much bigger star than Bob Backlund, but nobody knows who fucking Bruno is because he became a hermit for 20 goddamn years. So, what can you do? There's nothing that you could do about that. The wild thing is a lot of people was when people don't even know a guy was a wrestler. I used to get those conversations with people about Jesse the Body Ventura. They used to see him and thought he was a bodybuilder, and he just did movies and stuff. I'm like, Jesse Ventura was a wrestler. Like, he got injured, so most of us remember him as a commentator. But yeah, Jesse Ventura used to be a wrestler. He was another one of those knockoff Billy Graham guys. He wasn't very good, but was huge. Let's see. WG Phil says it kind of needs a balance, or else you'll do headcanon cringe like AEW fans do. Well, I can tell you, headcanon stuff, man, sometimes might be better than the real product. Young Rock ain't shit but a headcanon, I can tell you that much. D-Mac says, I don't know what to make of headcanon. On one hand, it's a fan's way to engage, but at the same time, the story is supposed to be told by their teller, not the audience, right? Right. The audience ain't supposed to be just coming up to their own conclusions. Like, I don't know when that started, though. Like, every story, I could tell. I don't want to be up all night, but I'm going to tell you the story anyway. I realized I wanted to be a storyteller when I was like 10 years old, right? I mean, there's two different stories. So when I was 10 years old, they sat me down in the classroom. I was shitty at writing, at least at first. And they said, we want everybody to write a story. I wrote a story about an astronaut. And I even drew a little picture to go with it. And I turned it in, didn't think of nothing about it. About 3 or 4 days later, I get called into, by the teacher. And they tell me I won some kind of writing award, for the story I wrote about this astronaut. And I'm just looking like, okay, does it include money? No. Does it include anything? No. So what was it? I got like a certificate, and I got to go to hang out in the high school. So my cousins went to Finney High School, and they had the award ceremony, the Young Writers Award. They had that ceremony there, and I remember going up on stage and getting my little certificate or whatever. And I was like, this writing thing ain't too bad. Like I can do this. But it's like when you were a kid, you got 100 different things that you want to do, and you kind of forget it, and you don't pay attention to it. And then it came back to me when I was in college, and one of my professors said basically everything is a story. And I was like, I was engaged because I know like I started to become engaged in other people's stories. Spent hours playing Final Fantasy, hours playing video games with deep, intricate stories and stuff like this. Not once did I headcanon my own ending to anything. I was always like following the story. Yeah, you would daydream about it, how you could have changed this and that. And I thought it was normal for average people to like Rubik's Cube the story a little bit and fan fiction it in your head, but I didn't think it was going to get as far as it did. Like, there's people here who couldn't tell you fucking anything about a fucking story, and they're telling you the story of a match between two guys who have never laid eyes upon each other before. They just literally making shit up. I'm just like, what are you talking about, man? Like, literally, this is not occurring. Or I don't know. It's weird, but the AEW fans, they seem to enjoy it. The Dragon Ball fandom seems to enjoy it a lot too. Like, they don't get that the Dragon Ball is thin on story on purpose. When you thin on story, you could be a lot in substance, or a lot, I mean, not a lot in substance, but a lot in style. And people get caught into style. That's what I talked about with Afro Samurai. Story is very simple. What you then attach to that is style. You craft style around it. Characters become a lot more important when you don't have like a lot of intricate story to tell. And the Dragon Ball is incredibly popular. It's the most simple stuff ever. It's Goku's never-ending desire to be the best. So therefore, there always has to be somebody better than him. But that also causes problems when Yamcha is there for 30 years, he's not doing anything. Tien's there for 30 years, he's not doing anything. You have those kinds of issues, But the amount of headcanon that comes from like the fan base of AEW would put the Star Trek fandom, the Star Wars fandom, it would get them a run for their money when it comes to basically we're just gonna write our own shit and run with it. We're just gonna write our own shit and run with it. All right, let's move on to our second story, which is AEW on DAZN. So AEW strikes up a deal to be on DAZN. DAZN is a sports app. I don't know if you would call it an app, but it's more of it's a platform. I'm not going to read the press release, but it's just going to say DAZN Group announced that it has secured exclusive broadcast rights to top American professional wrestling promotion, All Elite Wrestling, and a multi-year agreement that will bring its premium matches and entertainment to DAZN subscribers in 42 markets across Europe and Asia. So this doesn't affect people in the United States. So if it had, it might actually help DAZN. But we'll get into that in a minute. So you can still watch AEW on Fight or Bleacher Report live because it can't be exclusive in the United States. So it's only exclusive in Europe and Asia. At least that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. They give a list of stars for AEW, which include Athena, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Claudio Castagnoli. I didn't mention all the usual stars too, but I'm just thinking that's interesting to bring those guys up as stars. Says effective immediately, the Red Hot promotion will add more than 200 events annually to DAZN's ever-growing schedule, including AEW Dynamite every Wednesday, AEW Rampage every Friday, AEW Battle of the Belts 4 times a year, AEW pay-per-views 4 times a year, AEW Dark Elevation every Monday, AEW Dark every Tuesday. The introduction of AEW to the DAZN schedule is another major addition to the breadth of multi-sport content available on the platform and further cements DAZN as a glowing global home of combat sports. So listen to these countries to which this deal will include: Albania, Alderney, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, the Faroe Islands, Finland, Georgia, Gibraltar, Greece, Guernsey, Hungary, Iceland, the John Mayen Islands, Jersey, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, the Republic of Moldova, Romania, Serbia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Svalbard, Sweden, Tajikistan, Turkey, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. That's where DAZN is taking AEW, to Turkey and Romania. Look, there's people in these countries, okay? I'm not going to knock it. There's people here, okay? So if there's people there, you might be able to have some friends there, but I've never heard of the Giant Million Islands. I've never heard of that before in my life. I've heard of 90% of these countries. I'm a nerd. I've figured stuff out, you know? I've heard of, I may not be able to pick all of them off of a map, but I've never heard of the Giant Million Islands. That sounds made up to me. Jan Mayen Islands. That sounds made up to me. Jersey, I know where that is. I know where that is. Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark. I know where that stuff is. But Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, if you could put a gun to my head, you could put 6 guns to my head. I wouldn't know where any of that stuff is. Oh man, just pull the trigger. Okay, now DAZN sucks. All right, that's the thing we need to get out of this. DAZN sucks. They put on these freak show fights that continuously lose money. In fact, the guy who owns it has lost $2.3 billion in DAZN. $2.3 billion as of 2021. DAZN lost $934 million in 2020 to 2021. And it's not getting any better in 2022. I'm telling you, DAZN sucks. It sucks. It's almost, I think I made a joke that, you know, WWE should probably just buy DAZN for if they wanted to get into boxing, because DAZN does do freak show boxing. But it's not even worth it. We're being honest. It's not worth anything. It's they lost $300 to $400 million last year. They said that the biggest, DAZN, it sucks. I don't know. Everybody's looking at it and saying to themselves, like, look, for starters, all streaming services are losing money. So even though subscribers for Peacock has gone up, it's still losing $3 billion. Okay? But subscribers are at least going up. Here's some tweets from, it says, DAZN have announced that billionaire backer Len Blavatnik has agreed to a $4.3 billion capital injection, making them debt-free. DAZN chairman Kevin Mayer said that the recapitalization, quote, represents a strong vote of confidence in DAZN's strategy, progress, and future growth opportunities. This guy dumped another $4.3 billion into DAZN. Why? You could have sold it. Just fucking sell it. Wow. Everybody is stupefied by the concept that this guy would give them another $4 billion. That's insane. You know, you thought Vince McMahon was a pay piggy. What is going on here? I'm trying to find some recent numbers. It says DAZN has reached 15 million paid subscribers in 2022. I don't believe that. Let's try to find something that's a little bit more, because that came from some place called Fierce Video. That doesn't even make sense. Let's go to Financial Times. This might actually be a little bit more legitimate. How many subscribers does DAZN have? This is from, what year is this in? I don't see it. So DAZN is planning to take next steps to acquire BT Sport, which broadcasts the English Premier League, UEFA Champions League football competitions. This had to be in 2021. I'm trying to figure this out. In 2022, the last thing it says is that they got that money. Okay, here's Fight Hype. This is something. Notes from the Boxing Underground: DAZN's fail is boxing's loss. I don't want to go through this because it just seems like it's nonsense. It says, according to our recently published Bloomberg article, the streaming service, which is very tight with info regarding its books, lost 2.3 billion in 2021, in total more than 6 billion since its inception. The company claims about 1.9 billion of their losses came from their investment in acquiring German and Italian soccer league rights last year. So that means they only lost $400 million. What? And AEW signed, look, you gotta try to get people to watch your product. So hopefully the good people of Uzbekistan are paying attention and they can go enjoy them some Dynamite. I'm starting to think my soap is making me break out. Why else is my arms like this? I'm itchy as hell. Let's see. Bureaucrats are retardant. Yeah, they're exactly that. WG Phil says the 3-year anniversary of Edge's return. Quick analysis on his run so far, and does his comeback rival Shawn's 0-2 comeback? Nah, it's not in the same class as Shawn's 0-2 comeback. I can tell you that much. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the Royal Rumble section, but nah, it ain't the same level as Shawn. Shawn was killing it on 2. Shawn in 0-2 was like he never left, to a degree. All right, we got one more thing before we go into the Royal Rumble. Frankie Kazarian on leaving AEW. Now, this is actually interesting. I couldn't give a damn less about Frankie Kazarian. But I do want you to realize what he says here. He says, quote, "It's possible. I mean, a lot of guys are locked in for a while. I mean, I was locked in. But again, if I can fall on the sword, quote unquote, to give people inspiration, if they feel like they are sitting on the bench when they should be on the starting lineup, if me doing what I did can inspire somebody to kind of raise their hand and say, hey, what about me? This isn't what I signed up to do, then that's great. But that has to be up to the talent. Again, a lot of guys are happy just being kind of in the middle of the pack, making good money, and just being on the roster. Sometimes that's enough for people. Oftentimes it's not. It certainly wasn't for me. When you have that big of a roster, and the roster they've assembled is huge and it's full of incredible talent, it's bound to happen that certain people are going to be lost in the shuffle. How each individual feels about that varies. It depends on how much they believe in themselves, how much effort they want to put in. You only get what you want what you put into it. So again, if me doing what I did, my story, my decision can inspire anybody, I'm all for it. Again, like I said, if you bet on yourself, that's a safe bet. And we all know what is going to bring us happiness. So, a lot of guys might be happy where they're at. Some guys and girls may want more for themselves. I'm all for that. Get it, man. So he's trying to inspire more people stuck in the middle of AEW to leave, which this goes back to somebody just recently said that Malachi Black is signed to AEW until 2027. For starters, I don't want to believe that, so therefore I won't. I don't want to believe that. Therefore, I will not. But to me, if that is anywhere near true, it is an abysmal lack of understanding. Look, I'm not a fan of big long-term contracts, all right? Unless you're Undertaker, would you get a 10-year contract? What are you going to do with that? Really? And you can't get out of it. Like, you have to be like a franchise player for me to want you for 10 years. Why would you sign a mid-carder for more than 2 or 3 years? You should churn those mid-carders on in and out. They're not going anywhere. Just turn them in and out. Frankie Kazarian is a special case. He was one of the OG AEW guys who were brought in from day one, but he was old then, So to me, it just seems like time came and went. He wasn't going to do anything. They had no intention of using him or pushing him or giving him any real opportunities outside of wrestling on Dark, so he decided to leave. There's a lot of guys who are sitting on AEW's roster right now. I did a whole rant about this on my review to Dynamite. There's a lot of guys who probably should be rethinking their position in WWE and AEW. To me, they should be, again, if you're a mid-carder, and the company should at most keep you around for 2 or 3 years before just saying, look, just go somewhere else for a little while and we'll bring you back. 5 or 6 years, depending on your personality and whether you can get over and whether we can find like a faction to put you in or a tag team or something like that. But having a guy like a Kazarian or a guy like Dolph Ziggler around for 10 or 12 years, it sounds ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It's like football, man. You put the franchise tag on a certain number of guys and that's it, man. Then everybody else, see you when I see you. Male, female, tag team, whatever. This thing is not meant to be a longer term career. That's why they want wrestlers to be independent contractors. They want to sign you for a long time, of course, but they really want you to be around for a couple of years, and then you're supposed to venture off. Some guys have turned staying into WWE or AEW into their long term career plan, and the audience even gets tired of you, because they look at you and they say, this guy's he won't go away. And it's the Dolph Ziggler problem, So it's about guys who are trying to, Kazarian is trying to inspire guys to leave these bad positions that they're in. It doesn't make sense though. Like, what did Frankie Kazarian think he was going to do? That was my question. Like, when they broke up SCU, he should have left 2 years ago. When they broke up SCU, what did he think was going to happen? Did he think that he was automatically going to become like a superstar? When has he ever been a superstar? Never. But I agree with his overall idea, though. It's wild that AEW has these guys on the roster. They don't do anything with them. And they pay most of them to sit at home, and you're sitting back looking at yourself like staring down the barrel of a 7-year contract. Oof. I'm just saying, oof. 7 years? Look, and here's the thing. I know that the Lucha Underground contracts were was pretty bullshit too. I'm about to try to look up the Lucha Underground contracts while I'm talking about. 'Cause I think theirs were like 5 years or something like that. But it was. There's only one place, that if you are offered a 5-year contract, that might be worth it. And that's WWE. I don't I don't respect at all that you know AEW or TNA or whatever. 'Cause most of those places couldn't even honor those contracts when they were that long. You know. Um. So Sunny Kiss. Somebody said they talked about how long the Lucha Underground contract was. I'm trying to figure out who it is. I know Sonny Kiss was there, but I'm trying to see how long those contracts. I know they were long as hell. They were more than 3 years. Um, so I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure out what it is. But 7 years is entirely too long for mid carders. That's too long. For your top guys, like if you want to sign Kenny Omega to a 7-year contract, okay. You want to sign Jericho to a 7-year contract or Moxley or MJF, fine. But a 7-year contract from Malachi Black and you have no interest in actually doing anything with them? That's nuts. That's can't imagine that one. That's a nutty one right there. That's a literally like, but then you have to think about it. How much did he sign for? What's the pay? What's the cut? Is he making $500,000 a year? That's $500,000 a year. That's what at 7 years. That's what, a $3 million contract. Especially if it's guaranteed. Um, mm, you know, that's but $3 million in 7 years. I probably wouldn't want that one. That's a lot, brother. And plus, I'm guessing they make their own. They make money off their own t-shirts and stuff like that. I would imagine. So maybe they have a crazy baseline that they would make per year, and they don't have to do house shows or anything like that. But I don't know. But I can't figure out. But I know that the contracts at Lucha Underground are pretty nutty. Um, wait a minute. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look at one more link before I give up on this Lucha Underground contract thing. Because I know King Cuerno, who is El Hijo del Fantasma, aka Santos Escobar, he had to sue to get out of this contract with Lucha Underground. He said he was making less than $4,000. I'm sorry, he was making less than $4,000 a year in Lucha Underground. They're saying he was being held hostage. And who is this? Evil Lee said she was being held hostage, but nobody said how long the contracts were. But the contracts were long. I'm trying to remember how long they were, but they were long. Letting Tony Khan talk you into a 7-year contract sounds nutty to me. So tell me he just threw money at you and you signed it. That's what it seems like to me. That's sad. Really and truly. But I agree with Kazarian though. All in all, I agree with them. Mid Carter should want more for themselves. Impact is a desert. Just imagine how much these guys could rapidly change Impact if they were to just leave and go over there. Like, not everybody, like WWE is going to create their own little crop. They're doing this NIL thing. They're bringing young people in. They're going to do their own thing. AEW is signing anybody who WWE doesn't have. So they've populated their roster with a lot of guys that were fired from NXT, got people who will be released from NXT, people who are in Ring of Honor, that kind of thing. But there's not that many spots, and there's certainly not a lot of top spots in AEW, and then there's not a lot of storylines or a lot of TV time, a lot of real estate for you to play on. You know, it's still a small brand. Unless you're gonna wrestle all up, be the king of AEW Dark Elevation, you can almost forget being on Dynamite Weekly. But Impact is an opportunity. You know, they must pay like shit. That's the only thing I could think of. Like Impact must not pay a damn thing. Otherwise, people don't want to go there. You know, like nobody wants to go there. Clearly because they pay like shit. And it's gotta be. Um D-Max says 7-year deals are a hard sell. You really gotta like where you work and have some kind of guarantees to do that. Right. And why wouldn't you offer that kind of deal to only a certain number of people? You know? I would only sign somebody that long if I feel you're a franchise player. Like we absolutely need to have you on this roster. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk when he was there, Cody when he was there. Those are guys I would give, 8 years. Because those are the guys, for starters, you want Punk because, WWE doesn't have him. You want Omega because he's one of the guys who gives the company a unique look. Same thing with the Young Bucks. Same thing with Cody. They're the logos. They're the guys, the front facing of the organization. You want those guys around. As far as other guys that you would pay, to keep around for 7 years, maybe MJF, he might be a franchise player for you. Darby Allin might be a franchise player for you. Even though Darby Allin, I think, lowered his own value by saying he would never go work for WWE. He doesn't want to do that and all that kind of stuff. I mean, certain guys lower their value by having that kind of attitude. But, and vice versa too. Dolph Ziggler has done it for years. He's probably taken less money to stay in WWE than he probably could have made if he'd have left and jumped ship and did all that stuff. And a lot of people have said that he did do that, but they don't know his financial situation and don't know how much he gets paid. So, it's very hard to sell that you have the right idea when you don't know how much the guy gets paid. But I remember when he re-signed a contract, it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Meltzer was talking about how Dolph Ziggler probably can make a lot more money jumping around the independents than he can make in WWE. And I just said he doesn't think so. So that's why he stayed, but some people can, it depends on the situation. But it also might be that Dolph likes working in WWE. Some people like the environment. They like the people they work for. They like the people they work with. So, but I remember when they wanted me to sign a 2-year agreement at a job. I looked at them and said, "Bruh, I can't do more than 6 months. I'm not even gonna, because I don't know what the job is, brother. Like once I put my finger in it, I might like it and want to stick around, and we can sign up for another 6. But I'm not signing no 2-year agreement. That's not about to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in my life that this 2-year agreement is going to work out. Now it did end up, I ended up doing 18 months. 3 6-year agreements, 3 6-month agreements. But that's the best I can do, man. I can't imagine agreeing to do it for 7, and then being like a guy like Miro or a guy like Andrade, where you're sitting at home during your prime years. These dudes are in their prime and they're sitting at home because they're stuck under these 7-year contracts. That's nutty. It's like Mustafa Ali. It's like you better off releasing him. It's like what do you get out of him sitting at home? You have to pay him to sit at home. And then you're wasting his career. You're wasting your money because you're not getting that money back. So you're better off just cutting your losses and letting him go. He's not a top draw. If you want to play hardball with your top draws, like Sasha Banks or something like that, you're not just going to let her walk away. You're going to, all right, this is going to cost you something. You have to kick back your royalties or whatever. We'll let you out of your contract. But it's crazy how a top star like Sasha Banks could get out of her contract when a goddamn mid-carder is chained to the radiator like they're important. It's like, fire this fucking guy. You know, if you don't know what to do with them, just say, look, man, creative has got nothing for you. Cut him. You know, save yourself the money and spend the money on somebody. Either give the money to somebody who you didn't expect they was going to deliver the way that they did, and you give somebody a raise, or you go and find some more talent. You know, and that's the thing that's tripping me out. Like, Miro has been sitting on the couch for months. Just call the guy and say, look, man, we're done. All right. I want to give yours whatever I'm paying you. It's too much. You know, if you want to go back to WWE or whatever the case may be, just go. You know, just go, please. And then you take whatever you was going to pay Miro and you call somebody who has been over delivering, male or female, and you say, look, I'm going to give you this amount of money. You know, don't worry where it came from. Or you go out and you find some guys. You're like, look, he didn't want to work. Maybe for the cost of Miro, you can get 3 or 4 other guys. You know, it just doesn't make sense to keep a mid-carder who is not one of your top guys on the roster for this long. It's one thing for it to be a top guy. Again, top guys, you treat top guys differently. But to hamstring mid-carders is stupid. It's stupid. Unless you're worried that this person is going to jump ship and cause some kind of major shakeup somewhere else, I wouldn't even waste my time, man. Go ahead, go. You quit, all right. Bye. You know, the idea that people can't quit these jobs. This is the stuff that frustrates me because I'm usually smack dab in the middle. Sometimes the company is right, sometimes the boys are right. The boys are almost always right in a situation where they're not being used, they're not being pushed. Why are you keeping me under contract? You know, you're just holding me under contract just to hold me under contract. In that case, the guy is right. If you don't want to use me, you don't want to push me, you just want me to sit at home, like, and you're like 28, 31 or whatever, 32, you want to get out there because you're actually losing money at that point. You're going to be worth less money at the end of this contract. A guy like Miro, right? I don't know how old Miro is. He's probably, what, 35, 36 maybe? I know he's the same age bracket as Roman Reigns. At the end of his contract, if what Ninja is saying is true and it's like another 2 years or something like that, he'd be almost 40. But he would have been off television for a lot of that time. What is he worth once he's been off TV for all without it being an injury? He's just been off TV for a lot of this time. What is his value at that point? His value is minimal. You know, you've already killed his value. Let him go. If you have to keep somebody off TV for 7 or 8 months and it's a non-injury, let him go. I would not pay anybody 8 months to just sit at home. I'm not going to do that. 6 months total. If I have to suspend you for a year or something like that, might as well fire you. I will see you in the future. You know, like, it's ridiculous. You know? Yeah, Tony Khan has like some kind of agreement with William Regal where he can't be on television or something. Okay. You know, people sign all kind of weird things to get out of their contracts. They don't care. That's like Mercedes had to cough up her royalties and she couldn't sign with AEW, so she signed with New Japan. I think that was part of the deal. She couldn't jump ship to AEW. Just like there was in the Ring of Honor contracts. Well, I shouldn't say that because the Ring of Honor contracts that I read, they didn't say people couldn't go work for WWE after the Ring of Honor deal was over. But they were independent contractors, but they were carve-outs. Like in the Ring of Honor contracts, you could go work for any wrestling promotion that did not have national television. So you couldn't go work for WWE or TNA, but you can go work for anyone else. And essentially, TNA contracts were similar. You could go work for anybody except Ring of Honor or WWE. And that seems like it's fair to me. You can't go to our direct competitor, because what will end up happening, of course, is talent poaching. WWE contracts, you can't really go work for anybody else. But it's also once WWE starts paying you, do you really want to jeopardize those paydays by going to work podunk shows and Ring of Honor and breaking your tibia and you miss WrestleMania or something like that? You don't want to run that risk, so you just don't do it. That's the smart way of handling this problem. That's a smart way of handling that problem. But keeping a guy under contract for 7 years and he's just a mid Carter, he's not one of your top guys. I don't know. But then again, Tony Khan has a weird way of looking at things, because he might see Miro as a top guy. He might see Miro as one of his top guys, one of his top level dudes. It's like you're not thinking about the guy. You got him sitting at home. But Tony Khan is also the kind of guy who claims to have this master plan, this Bible of stories that he's got written for a year in advance or something like that. He also wants to have a bench of, oh, this guy's got hurt, let me throw Miro in there. That's not the way to do things, man. That's not the way to do it. I'm sorry. It's not a football team. You don't need 3 or 4 star linebackers and only one can play on each down. You just don't need it. It's just, how many starting quarterbacks do you need? Eventually somebody's going to get that frustration and be like, I'm out of here, man. I could be starting somewhere else. I'm sitting on the bench, wasting my years away. It's affecting my earning potential. That's why they want to work. Not because they hate AEW or WWE. It's because sitting on the bench, sitting at home, hurts their earning potential. That's T-shirts they're not selling. That's tickets they're not selling. That's bonuses and stuff they're not earning. That's matches they're missing, and an inability to invest in their own brand. He doesn't shuffle his mid Carters nearly enough. TN Pyro. He does shuffle his mid Carters. I will say that, but he doesn't shuffle them nearly enough. Not nearly enough. And then some of these guys shouldn't be mid Carters. When you look at the quality of the talent that he's pushing, some of these guys shouldn't even be mid Carters. Like, why is John Moxley in a regular rotation in AEW? Not to say there's anything wrong with Moxley, but if you were really about rotating guys, shouldn't he have been rotated out by now? He should have been put on the bench for a little while by now. No, instead they signed him to a more restrictive contract that sort of, I think there was one carve out for GCW, but not nearly as flexible as his initial contract was. I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot of people, Tony Khan need to, pass the buck on that he shouldn't have signed. Maybe he should have signed them for a per appearance deal. That's one thing I want these people to really do more, is sign people per appearance. Tony Khan was really good at that in the early stages of AEW before he got addicted to the all elite buzz. He brings somebody in, short run, they out. Sign them 5 matches, 6 matches, then call it a day. We're going to give you this per match, 6 matches, whatever. We're going to call it a day. Spread out over 3 months or whatever. It may be 2 Dynamite appearances, a Rampage appearance, 2 Dark Elevation appearances, or 2 Dark appearances. Then, thank you for doing business. We'll move on. Then you could put, as seen on AEW Dynamite on your bio and go to your NXT tryout. So instead of trying to sign everybody, WWE has that problem in a major way where they think they Major League Baseball or something like that. They just want to have a triple A team and all a bunch, like, whatever. But WWE can have their own problems. TNA and AEW needs to be smarter. You're working with less. You got less time. You got less resources. If you're Impact, you definitely got less time and less resources. So they should definitely be out there trying to get talent. that's what AEW's been doing. They've been sending people to Ring of Honor, you know. But what is Ring of Honor really? It's names. That's it. There's nothing in Ring of Honor. Now that one of the Briscoes is dead, you got nothing in Ring of Honor. You know, you don't have shit. The Briscoes were the draw for Ring of Honor. Now all you got is Mark. And ain't nothing wrong with Mark, but Jay was a star. I hate to put it that way, but he was the star of the team. He was the solo star of the team. You know, Mark is a great talent, but he's not Jay. And now that you know, lost Jay Briscoe, why even have Ring of Honor? What's the value of it? Your only hope, I guess, is to let somebody else run it. That's what I would do personally. I would turn it over to the Ring of Honor originals. I would call CM Punk on the phone and say, I want you to run Ring of Honor. You know, do whatever you want with it. I'm not going to interfere. Occasionally, I want you to come back and wrestle for AEW, but this is what I want you to do. Go run Ring of Honor for me. You know, do whatever you want. Push whoever you want. Pay-per-views, whatever, and call it a day. I mean, because you really ain't got what else you got? You gonna put Adam Cole back in Ring of Honor? No. You don't put Samoa Joe back in. Well, technically, I guess they did. He's a television champion. Just doesn't jive with me, man. I think Ring of Honor is really dead now. Without Jay Briscoe, man, without the Briscoes, Ring of Honor ain't got nothing. He ain't got nothing going. So that's sad. But all right, let's do the Royal Rumble so I can get out of here. All right. 5-match show, which has been the usual for WWE. I'm thinking they probably should make it 6. Here's what I'm going to say. And this is probably going to rub some people the wrong way. They should put the Becky and Bayley cage match on this show. That's what I would do. In order to mitigate some of the anger about the cage match, they should put Becky and Bayley cage match on this show. And there's 2 ways of doing it that can make it interesting. Either one, you have the Women's Royal Rumble match first and have Becky and Bayley eliminate each other, knowing they have to fight again later. Or you can have the cage match first and then say like the loser forfeits her spot in the Royal Rumble or something like that. Then, of course, you'll probably have to make the Royal Rumble the main event, the Women's Royal Rumble the main event. And that would change pretty much everything. It wouldn't change who I would have win the match. Or you could do the ultimate ballsy move and just have a 30-woman Royal Rumble with no Becky Lynch and no Bayley. But I definitely think they need to have that cage match on this show. You know? But I know then probably USA will probably bitch and say, you promised a cage match on our show. So they probably wouldn't be able to get away with it. But they should add that women's cage match to this show. You know, it's only right. But they're not going to do that. So they got 5 matches: the men's Royal Rumble, the women's Royal Rumble, Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight in the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the Undisputed Universal Championship, and Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. So no Charlotte, no Usos. I'm not expecting them to add a Usos match because, you know, the tournament's not over yet, so I don't expect them to add a Usos match. I don't expect them to add no Gunther match to this. I expect them to save a lot of that story stuff for the Royal Rumble whole. Same thing I don't expect the Charlotte match to be added. So since I don't think anything of major is going to be added to the Royal Rumble, let's just do predictions now. Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss. There is no money in Alexa Bliss winning this match. There is none. Okay. Alexa Bliss, whatever she had going on in terms of being able to sell merchandise with the Lily doll, I don't know if that's even still a thing. somebody who may be familiar with her merchandise sales probably know a little bit better than me, but I'm almost certain the Lily doll thing is not legitimate anymore. You know, it's probably just not a thing anymore. So Bianca Belair should win and should win pretty handily, but I'm probably going to do some more spooky stuff simply because Alexa Bliss is the highest level opponent she got right now. That's not going to be in the Royal Rumble. And I know that they have said that they want to do this Bianca Belair versus the Four Horsewomen at WrestleMania thing. I don't think Bayley's going to make it. So I don't think Bayley's going to make it. So Charlotte would be next, but Charlotte wants to wait. And since she's a champion on SmackDown, yeah, it's going to probably be a while before we have Charlotte versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania. It'll probably be WrestleMania 40 next year, to be quite honest. So I'm going to go with Bianca Belair. I definitely think Bianca's going to win. Alexa winning would shock me, especially considering her character work and her in-ring work has not been very good lately. AJ3 says Triple H got rid of the kickoff show, so no Uso tags title match. You know what? I forgot. I didn't even notice that he got rid of the kickoff shows. You know, I'm pretty sure he did get a kickoff show. He probably just don't have a kickoff match. I like the kickoff matches. You know, let's do a free for all match. It's a good place to do some final warming up for the crowd. I think that's a perfect place for NXT. If you ask me personally, I would do an NXT match for your kickoff show. Every kickoff show would be like an NXT match. It'd be like a tag match or a women's match, or it wouldn't be like an NXT championship match on the kickoff show for the Royal Rumble. I wouldn't go that far, but I would do something that features NXT as a way of promoting NXT. You know, so I would probably have like a eight man tag or something like that, just to kick off the show. That's what I would do, you know. But the kickoff matches are pretty cool. I loved the free for all as a kid because you always got one free match at least, and you know them hawking all the T-shirts and telephone lines that they could. All right, the Mountain Dew pitch black match. Bring back Todd Grisham. Oh no. Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight, Mountain Dew pitch black match. I expect people to come out of this match complaining. I expect people to come out of this match angry. I expect people to come out of this match breathing fire at Bray Wyatt once again about how he's not a good wrestler. He's not a good persona. He's not good in the ring. He's trash. It's all smoke and mirrors. LA Knight is so very good. He tried his best. Yada, yada, yada. Because this is what happens every single time. It happens every single time. Mountain Dew, I think you could clean a bumper. You could probably buff rust off of a car with Mountain Dew. The only pop I drink is Burners. And that's because it helps me burp when I eat too many carbs, like I did earlier today. I was carved out earlier. I overdid it. That's the only time I drink pop. Otherwise, I don't drink pop. So I don't know what I thought Mountain Dew was green. Maybe it's a different color in the UK because I think y'all don't allow certain dyes, right? I know the United States we're a little bit more freewheeling with the color dye. I know y'all in the UK is a little different. Is Sprite clear in the UK? Because I know it's clear in the United States. Anyway, I expect Bray Wyatt to win the match for obvious reasons, and I don't think they're going to have LA Knight beat Bray Wyatt. But I expect people to complain a lot about this match. They're going to complain a lot. Like a lot. They're going to complain a lot. Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. Clearly, Roman Reigns is going to win this match. It's always going to be about what will Sami Zayn do. I really question. I think this match is going to go on first, mainly because it just looks like it's the match that's going to go on first. Roman's gonna want to go out there and finish his business and then call it a day. What will Sami Zayn do? That's my question. If this comes on before the men's Royal Rumble match, it's going to tie into the Royal Rumble match. If it's after the Royal Rumble match, then it really will tie into the Royal Rumble match. But I'm guessing this match is going to go on first. AJ3 thinks the Fiend will return in the Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight match. I think we're going to get more teasing. There's going to be some more teasing of Mr. Doc. I was about to call him Mr. Howdy. I was about to call him Dr. Howdy. Uncle Howdy. Maybe Uncle Howdy is confronted by the Fiend. That could be true. That could happen. Mountain Dew might have a slight color, but most of the bottle green is in the bottle. It's the bottle. Yeah. It's green in the United States. It's straight green. Like, it's just green. Okay, so I expect Bray Wyatt to win. Roman Reigns is going to win. They may make Kevin Owens seem strong in order to keep this feud going on. Because what comes after Elimination Chamber is in Montreal, right? So Montreal, that's February. That's Canada. Kevin Owens is from Canada. He's also from Montreal. Maybe they have Kevin Owens get screwed in this match and he gets a rematch in Montreal at Elimination Chamber. Not inside the Elimination Chamber, but as an extra match in the Elimination Chamber. I can see them doing that. Husky Harris makes his return to WWE. Oh my goodness. All right, let's talk about the things everybody wants to talk about. Mountain Dew was delicious. It's too sweet. I can't deal with pop. Pop is too sweet for me. The women's Royal Rumble match. So give me some predictions as I talk here. Because to me, there is only two options for the women's Royal Rumble. One is Liv Morgan. Two is far more likely, and that's Rhea Ripley. I have been saying Rhea Ripley for a year, so I'm not going to change it. It's going to be Rhea Ripley. She's going to win the women's Royal Rumble match. I could deal with Liv Morgan getting the bulldog treatment, where she gets all the way to the end and then gets screwed and loses. I can see Dominic Mysterio getting involved, costing Liv Morgan the match, and Rhea Ripley gets the shot at WrestleMania. To me, that seems to be the most logical answer, is to put the thing on Rhea Ripley. Why else have they been protecting Rhea Ripley? Why else have they been having Rhea Ripley look so dominant, even over other men? Why do any of that if she's not going to win the Royal Rumble? Almost everybody else that has been involved with the Royal Rumble match has been taking losses. Becky's taken loss. Bayley's taken losses. Hell, Bianca ain't took a loss in a while. Pretty much everybody except Rhea Ripley. She's the only one that's not getting beat on TV. So to me, it's got to be Rhea Ripley. I can. There's that little piece of me that says it could be Liv Morgan, because they might want to go all the way with a baby face, but there's no heel champions for her to wrestle, and she can always win the Elimination Chamber. Now you could say Liv Morgan could win the Rumble, and then Rhea Ripley can win the Chamber. That could work, but I don't think so. It could work, but I don't think so. Now, Vegeta Lover says, what about Becky or Naomi? Becky's not going to win. I think Becky, for starters, she doesn't need to win. Second, I think they've had an idea for Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair. They've had that for months, to me, as far as I know. They've had that going on for months. So they've been teasing Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley for the last several months. The only curveball that you might want to throw in that is that Rhea Ripley loses this match just to win the Elimination Chamber. That would be the only way it would make sense. But I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley winning the Royal Rumble because it's a bigger win and it's more emphasis on her. Now, as far as big returns, people are just throwing names out. I think that there's probably not going to be a lot of female legends. I think there'll probably be 2 or 3 surprises, and the rest will be populated by NXT talent. Like, I definitely think Tiffany Stratton will be in the Royal Rumble. Cora Jade will probably be in the Royal Rumble. Probably Alba Fire will be in the Royal Rumble. As far as female legends are concerned, we've seen most of them recently. You know, so Michelle McCool, Melina, we've seen a lot of them come back. The only one that would be a legitimate shocker, as far as I'm concerned, would be Sasha Banks. That would be the only one that would be like a supreme surprise. I didn't expect to see her. The rest of them, I kind of expect to see. Like, if we have a moment where Beth Phoenix comes back and she's going to try to take out Rhea Ripley, that could be a big moment for the Royal Rumble, only for Rhea to eliminate her. That could be special. Lita, Trish, I can, you know, not a guarantee, but I can see that. The Bella Twins, I can see that. So I want to focus on what I think is a legitimate surprise. And I do think that Naomi will return. So that's the one I think they'll probably slide that one in there and get most people happy. Then they're going to be upset when she loses. Because if Naomi wins, who does Naomi wrestle at WrestleMania? Does she wrestle Charlotte? Or does she wrestle Bianca Belair? If she wrestles Bianca Belair, then she's in the exact same position that she was in before, what she was going to do a job to Bianca Belair. She's not going to beat her. Now, Darren Gordon Hill has a good point here, AJ Lee. AJ Lee would be a surprise. I will also think that it's, you know, heaven and earth have moved if AJ Lee was to, you know, rejoin the Royal, or if it was Stephanie McMahon. I think there's more a likelihood of Stephanie McMahon entering the Royal Rumble than AJ Lee. And you know what? It would be fun if Stephanie, you know, she just had foot surgery, but it would be fun if Stephanie entered the Royal Rumble. I don't think she's ever done it yet, you know? So that would be interesting, wouldn't it? If Stephanie joined. Well, she just had foot surgery, so she probably wouldn't do it, but it would be a fun little moment to have Stephanie make her grand return as a I wish I was in the room. Like, I would pitch that, like her to just kind of come to the ring on crutches or something like that. It would be funny. It would be great. But she wouldn't be able to do it because she just had surgery. The likelihood of it being Sable, forget it. Sable's not gonna do it. She's like 60 anyway, so no, that's not gonna happen. You may see Ivory again, you may see Molly Holly again. Like I said, the only real surprise that might make people jump is Naomi. I can't think of anybody else. AJ3 says Kairi Sane. I guess Asuka's return, that would work, but only if Asuka's a different persona. And at that point, I wouldn't even put her in the Royal Rumble. I would have her eliminate somebody. You know, where you turn out the lights, somebody's in the ring, turn out the lights, and then boom, here's some kind of special version of Asuka, and she takes somebody out and throws them out of the ring. And she attacks them, brutalizes them, or something like that, chokes them out or whatever. And she doesn't actually enter the Royal Rumble herself. I would do something like that. That way she doesn't lose. but like Evil Oscar or Kana-chan, that might work. Maki Ito, as if anybody in the United States outside of sweaty losers, sweat hogs would know who Maki Ito is. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it being Kana. Maybe they'll go and get like Bull Nakano is retired, but maybe they'll go back to that. Maybe they'll have Bull Nakano or Medusa or somebody like that join the match. Who knows? Both of them are 60 though. So I don't know. But maybe they'll call some of those Stardom girls or something like that to put them in there. But I definitely think like there's not going to be a lot of female surprises. There's going to be a lot of NXT talent. I can't think of anybody else. Maybe Awesome Kong. She's retired too. I think she would be really cool. I would really mark out if she came out there. I would mark out for sure. If Awesome Kong came out there, I would be like that rules. That would be something that might actually get me very excited. Yes, I saw the Dominic and Rhea training video earlier. It was fun. Rhea without so much makeup on, for Christ's sake. And she does look like Pete Dunne. That's fucked up. He does look like Pete Dunne. They have the same pizza face. Nikita Lyons is hurt, so she's not going to be in it. Zoe Stark, yeah, that's Triple H homegirl. For some reason, he loves him some Zoe Stark. So I could definitely see him putting Zoe Stark in there. So I think they only announced like 5 women. I think they're probably 5 or 10 or something like that. I think the most of the match will be populated by lower card women from WWE, Emma, Candice LeRae, Xia Li, maybe not Toxic Attraction, but Damage Control. But I do think Toxic Attraction will be in it. Maybe we'll get Mandy Rose return. I think Mandy Rose returning would be fun. Naomi returning would be fun. But moments that may change people's perception of the Women's Royal Rumble is if you've got to have more established legends and stuff like that. That's why I say you got to have like an Awesome Kong show up. You got to have somebody. You got to have somebody like Gail Kim, appear. Not, and I know some people. I have really mixed emotions about Gail Kim, but I think if she was to appear, it would be fun. It'd be fun for the audience. Like they had Mickie James appear last year rather. Let's do Gail Kim this year. But Gail Kim has also been on a tip where she's a feminist and Vince and all that kind of stuff. So maybe somebody like her wouldn't make it. And I think it'll be the same thing with Christy Hemme. It'd be weird, especially since Christy Hemme is supposedly one of the chicks that took some of Vince's money. Of course, that hasn't been proven, but a lot of the Divas era women stars, they're not over enough. Nobody talks about them enough. Like Caitlyn, nobody talks about her enough. Candice Michelle, nobody talks about her enough. They wouldn't make as much of a splash. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard, and they're just gonna have to keep falling on the old reliables like the Bella Twins and Trish and Lita and all of them. And we've seen them 100 times already. So their best bet is to find some woman who got fired from WWE, Naomi or something like that, and bring her back. Nia Jax. Maybe Nia Jax gives a big response when she returns. Mandy Rose gives a big response. Naomi. Outside of that, this match is going to be mostly NXT women and lower card women. That's my somewhat expert opinion on how this match is going to turn out. All right. So now the men's Royal Rumble match. Now, the men's Royal Rumble match, there really is only one option. And that's Cody Rhodes. However, you can make a very strong storyline argument for Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn overcoming the odds, winning the Royal Rumble match, and having a match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. It would draw huge. I'm telling you, it would draw huge. But you can't do it. You just can't do it. I don't think that Sami Zayn has. It's not that he's not. The story will carry him to the spot. The story will carry him to the main event of WrestleMania. It absolutely can. The issue is, do you even consider Sami Zayn going over? Is it believable that Sami Zayn could defeat Roman Reigns after almost a year of my tribal chief? Now all of a sudden he can beat Roman? Darren says Sammy would kill it as an entertainer. None of you believe me. Well, maybe you were right about that. You might have been right. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, like, the good writer in me says that Sami Zayn is the right choice. If I was writing this story, Sami Zayn would win the Royal Rumble. And now it's similar to if he'd have won the Money in the Bank, where you would have had the bloodline looking at him like, okay, now you coming after the title, right? Now you trying to take the titles. Now what you trying to do? Give them a reason to stomp him out and leave him bloody and fucked up. That could work. And it would go into WrestleMania with an incredible amount of heat, and people would be standing on their own heads. But it would not be believable to the average person to think that Sami Zayn could defeat Roman Reigns. And I just don't think it's possible. I think people are looking at it and saying to themselves, Roman is invincible. He needs to lose. And who has the best shot of beating him? Sami Zayn is not that guy. But I appreciate it's not ludicrous. Let's put it like that. Sami Zayn is not. I saw somebody say that they hope Cody won't end up being Batista to Sami Zayn's Daniel Bryan. I don't think so. I think people want Cody to win this match. I definitely think people care about Cody enough to win this match. I think people believe in Cody. I think WWE have told the appropriate story with Cody. But I do think you have to deal with the Sami Zayn part. You gotta successfully satisfy the Sami Zayn part. Having Sami Zayn fight the Usos, that's also a very good story, because he's always been friends with Jimmy, and he's become friends with Jay, and now he's going to fight them for the title. That's another very good story. Is it the biggest story possible with Sami Zayn? No. Is it a great story though? Yes. The question is, how do we get there? Since Elimination Chamber is in Montreal, both Sami and Kevin Owens are from Montreal. What Vince would do is probably have Sami Zayn get murdered in Montreal in front of God, his family, and everybody, and just for the heat. But Triple H doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. He seemed like the kind of guy who would probably put Sami Zayn in the Elimination Chamber match, and he would lose or something. But I don't see the point of a men's Elimination Chamber match, because there's only one championship. So what are you gonna What are you going to challenge for? You know, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, you know, the Rumble winner gets the title shot. So what is the men's elimination chamber match? What is that for? You know, I don't know. Intercontinental Championship, I would guess. I would venture. Maybe United States Championship. Anyway, I'm thinking Cody. And I think that's the best option we got. But you can make a very strong story argument for Sami Zayn. And I'm not as dismissive of the concept of Sami Zayn as I was before. I was very dismissive of Sami Zayn being a top guy. Now I get it. You know, now I get it. I still don't believe. I do not believe he's a credible contender. I just don't believe it. You know. So that's just me. All right, now surprises. I think that there's going to be a lot of NXT talent. I want them to do fun stuff with the Royal Rumbles, like, you know, the Tumblr, where people are going to pick their number and complain or celebrate about what their number is. I like those skits from the Ruthless Aggression era. That made the Rumble fun. We already know who's going to be in it because you can pick 30 guys on the roster who tell us who's going to be in it. But you know, have some guys pulling numbers and, you know, guys swapping, trying to trade numbers and all this kind of stuff. I think it'll be fun. Maybe Baron Corbin bets his number in a poker game and loses it to somebody else, or, you know, something like that. It could be fun. Now, surprises. NXT talent, I think likely will be in this. Carmelo Hayes, Brian Breaker, maybe Cameron Grimes will get in here. So I definitely think there's going to be some NXT talent making an appearance. Now, as far as big returns and big free agents, now, I saw somebody mention earlier Jay White. Saw somebody also mentioned Nick Aldis. There's also been some people trying to troll with Zack Ryder. You know, somebody said Chris Masters. Nick Aldis, I could see. All right. Nick Aldis, he's been a free agent since the first, and I have not seen hide or hair of Nick Aldis anywhere. That tells me he's probably coming to WWE. Nick Aldis would be a great pickup for WWE. I think he's a natural opponent for Cody once Cody is, you know, settled in as champion. Him and Nick Aldis have some unfinished business. I love that idea. I love the presentation of Nick Aldis. He takes the business seriously. The WWE Championship will be taken seriously for the first time in ages. If Cody and Nick Aldis were fighting over it, you know, they can do their whole 10 pounds of gold series all over again. That would be tremendous because they did a really good job with that. I definitely think, and especially since he hasn't popped up in Impact or AEW yet, that Nick Aldis is going to be one of the guys. Now, Jay White, I don't see it. I until he actually leaves, I don't think Jay White will ever leave New Japan. You know, he's a dojo boy. They beat loyalty into those fucking guys. The only way he leaves is if he got absolutely offended or pissed off by New Japan and he just can't take it anymore. So he left. I would love if Jay White came to WWE. And, you know, he would have to reinvent himself, but he's young enough that I think he's still under the age of 30, unless he's actually 30. You can build around Jay White. He's tremendous. I don't think we'll be as fortunate enough to know that Jay White is going to come to WWE. Nick Aldis, yes. Jay White, no. Now, as far as big returns, that's the question. It'll probably be some Ruthless Aggression era guys. People here are talking about Chris Masters. I could see Chris Masters being, you know, brought back for the Rumble. That would be fun. I'm still waiting on it being like Sid or Val Venus or something, you know, somebody we haven't seen in a long time. Ken Shamrock, for Christ's sake. That would be fucking awesome if it was Ken Shamrock. It ain't gonna be The Rock. It ain't gonna be Stone Cold Steve Austin. You can forget it. You know, those kinds of guys are not going to make an appearance in a cameo appearance in the Royal Rumble just to get thrown out. You know, that's not gonna work. Um, who else could it be? Who else? You know, Rob Van Dam. I think he would be a good one. I'm all in on Rob Van Dam making an appearance. That would be fun. You know, to have Rob Van Dam's theme music blast. Uh, where are they at for the Royal Rumble? If it was in Philadelphia, I'd say they definitely do it. It is in San Antonio. Yes, the Alamo Dome. I don't know. Maybe some kind of Mexican wrestler. I don't know why I thought Mexican wrestlers because they're in San Antonio. It's a joke from '97 Royal Rumble, which took place in the same building. Edge, yes, I think Edge will return at the Royal Rumble for sure. He's been gone for a long time too. So Edge popping back up to take on Finn Balor and Judgment Day. I think we'll finally get the head of Rey Mysterio and Dominic. They're going to get their big thing here. Instead of Booker T, how about Stevie Ray? How about that? You know, if it's Stevie Ray and maybe Booker T is on commentary when Stevie Ray comes out there. That could be fun, right? I don't know. Like who else could it be? You know, it seems like that we've burned through a lot of the legends too. Mr. Kennedy, I would love it if he was to pop back up. You know, I don't think he doesn't look anything like Mr. Kennedy now, though. He's kind of chubby. He's on the chubbier side. Maybe John Morrison. I could see John Morrison making a return. He did make a statement recently saying that he has some unfinished business with The Miz. Ali Hankerson says, you know, Jay White as a wild card from another company. You know what? If that was the case and he's not literally signed to WWE, but he's just making a Rumble appearance, I could see that. That could be fun. If Jay White just makes an appearance because he was invited and he's not really signing to WWE, that would be fine. And I guess they could say that because that's what they did with Mickey James. You know, the Royal Rumble is an open challenge, you know. So that would be fun. Who else would who else? Boogeyman, somebody said. Well, Boogeyman does have a Legends contract. They could pull him out whatever they want. Wade Barrett, I think Wade Barrett is retired. I don't think he's going to get back in it. Hurricane, that would be a waste. We just saw the Hurricane like I think 2 years ago or something like that, or a year or so ago. Let's think about it. Things outside the box, you know. Let's see. Maybe who is old enough to be memorable, but young enough to actually be able to participate. You know, Sabu is too old. Almost all of the ECW guys, minus Rob Van Dam, is too old. Tommy Dreamer is really, really fat. Like really fat. You know, and plus he works for Impact. The Great Muta, you know what? That might be smart. Maybe the Great Muta, you know, makes his WWE debut in the Royal Rumble. That would be fun. And he eliminates Shinsuke Nakamura. Maybe he makes his WrestleMania debut. He's had so many last matches. He's had Muta's big bye or whatever the fuck. It was a 6-man tag. Now from that, he's about to have another singles match with Tetsuya Naito. That fool is never going to retire. Jake Paul, I guess we mean Logan Paul, is going to be in the Royal Rumble. Now I could definitely see that happening. I could definitely see WWE calling Logan Paul to do the Royal Rumble. Pat McAfee could be another big one for the Royal Rumble. Having Pat McAfee and Logan Paul in the ring at the same time may break the internet. That would be real fun. You know, 2 non-wrestlers in the ring doing, but they're incredibly athletic. I would probably start the match with those two guys. Let them do their thing. So there's some options out there, but I'm thinking that we're looking at ruthless aggression era dudes that they're going to be bringing back. Things that would people who would actually break my brain if they actually showed up. CM Punk. I probably wouldn't even be able to contain myself if Philip showed up on a WWE promotion. I may run my head through the wall. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if that was to happen. And I wouldn't know if it would be joy or fury. I'm interested in seeing which one it would be. I'm pretty sure it'd probably be like, oh shit, excitement at first. And then by the time he got to the ring, I'd be, ready to barbershop window myself. They need to make Jake and Logan a tag team. I think they probably will. Randy Orton. How about that? People haven't heard the name Randy Orton in a long time. It seemed like a perfect time for Randy Orton. Matt Riddle can make a, but it seems very phony for Matt Riddle to make a big return at the Royal Rumble. Like, he ain't been gone that long, and he was in the middle of. He was ice cold when he left too. It wasn't like he was in a hot spot in his career. He was on a downslope. So I don't know. I don't know if I would, but I could see Riddle and Randy Orton appearing at different spots. But I definitely think Nick Aldis would be there. That would be fun. In terms of others, I don't know. John Morrison, yeah, I could see him showing up. Taya Valkyrie for the women's division, I don't think so, because she works for MLW right now, and I'm pretty sure MLW has her all tied up. I would cheer CM Punk and then boo him. I would cheer him because I would definitely be able to get tons and tons of content out of CM Punk returning. I would be standing in my chair, doing a Harlem Shake at how much content I would get out of CM Punk making an appearance in WWE. But that tells me that's why he's probably still under contract to AEW. They don't want him to pop over into the Royal Rumble. They don't want him to make up with Triple H and him coming on over. I wouldn't want that either, for Christ's sake. Yeah, we don't need Kane or Chavo. I'm good on both of those. I'm just gonna have to pass on Chavito. If you want to bring the juice in, though, I'm down for that. See, I'm 100%. I'm down for them bringing in the juice, dog. He'll have to have his old music though, his old WCW thing. That way, everybody will know who he is. What else? That's about it. I can see them bringing in Chris Masters. Chris Masters for a big return. He have to do his whole masterpiece entrance, so that means he'll probably have to come in at 1 or 2, and in order to him have time to do that entrance. He ain't doing shit in NWA anyway, so he might as well come back to WWE. He might as well shuffle some of these mid carders off the Mortal Coil, and Chris Masters still looks great. He's a better wrestler than he was when he left the second time, and he was better than he was the first time. That time too. He signed him when he was way too young and he wasn't ready. But it would be great if we finally got Chris Masters and he finally, made some money off of the goddamn investment they put into that guy. He'd be another Drew McIntyre. There's nobody really in New Japan that I think that would matter. I don't think the audience will really know who Jay White is. I don't expect the audience to know who Nick Aldis is. But I expect that they would give it a try. At least with Nick Aldis, they would give it a try, and they would be willing to run the risk with Jay White, because Jay White at least main evented Madison Square Garden. At least he main evented Madison Square Garden. I don't want to see any of those Oh, the trial of, oh my God, the trial of Eric Bischoff is what you mean, Darren Gordon Hill, where Chris Masters got on the stand and said his name was Chris Masters, and Vince was the judge and said, "Your real name is Chris Mordetsky." That was great. And then Maria, who was usually a airhead, was like a very sophisticated lawyer. That fucking ruled. What a great moment that was. That was fantastic, bro. That was a great series of promos right there, man. That was some good shit. I missed it. They need to do more stuff like that. I like skits, man. I love skits. Vince had an iPad or an MP3 player or something like that in the courtroom. What was he listening to? Macklemore or something like that? It was crazy. But that was back when they used to have comedy writers and they used to actually use the comedy writers. But well, Santino is working in Impact. Maybe they'll bring him back. So he can do. They seem to have no problem working with Impact. I don't think there's anybody in Impact currently that WWE would want to use outside of Mickey James. I just don't see it. So, but that's my thing. Cody is going to win the Royal Rumble match. Rhea Ripley is going to win the Women's Royal Rumble match. Roman Reigns, Bianca Belair, and Bray Wyatt. Those are my choices. All right. It is 10:15. I've been doing this for 2 hours and 15 minutes. A lot of people have come in. I thank them very much for their participation. If there is no further comments or anything of that description, I can get ready to sign off. Jake Something is a guy I would definitely send to NXT. I would sign him and send him to NXT. He is definitely worth the guy is big. He's massive. He has a unique look. I would definitely sign Jake Something. If for no other reason, then it might get you something interesting. All right. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out, huh?